Today I want to do a Spotify maths lesson, and I want to highlight the issues with the music industry and show you why the entire system is rigged against DIY independent artists. Spotify is the biggest of all of the DSPs, and whilst this is a problem with all of the DSPs, this is a specific Spotify maths lesson. So Spotify has 675 million monthly users. It's got a valuation of over 30 billion, and in 24 it turned over its first full year profit. Yay. But what do artists, especially independent DIY artists, what do they actually earn from Spotify? Obviously, I know you are artists and I know you can tell me this, but I want to go into breaking down everything using real data and also some reasonable assumptions and some simple math. And then I want to look into why the math doesn't actually math. And lastly, I want to look into some solutions of what must happen next to fix the music industry and also to make sure that we are looking after artists in every corner of the world. So let's start with number one, why the math doesn't math. So Spotify has, I'm just going to excuse my childlike writing, 675 million monthly active users. Okay, now this is an assumption where we have to be a bit careful, but an estimate of daily active users on an app is usually approximately around about 25%. Okay, so 25%, if that is correct, that would work out roughly at about 168.75 million daily active users. Now, this is where we start to get into the assumptions. Let's assume out of these 168 million users, let's assume that everyone averages around about 1 hour of listening time. Okay, now that would work out roughly-ish at about 15 songs within that 1 hour. Now, if you're listening to Dream Theater, you might get through 2 songs in the hour. If you're listening to, into your 30-second yoga music, you might get through more. But we're doing a rough average here, okay? This should be a standard app engagement ratio, okay? So then we do the math, okay? So 168.75 million multiplied by 15 songs per user. Now that would work out roughly, to 2.53 billion streams. Hopefully you can see that. That is per day, okay? So that's 2.5 billion streams per day. So let's round that down roughly to 2.5 billion streams per day. So that's quite a lot of streams, okay? Now, if Spotify is processing around about 2.5 billion streams every single day, let's ask the big question, which is, how much do artists actually get paid around this business model? Okay. So according to reports, including Spotify, Ditto Music, everything else, Spotify pay per stream, as we are all acutely aware of this number, they pay per stream 0.003 to 0.005, effectively a third of 1 cent to a half a cent per stream. Now, we are going to work off the basis of an average, so therefore we will work off the basis of 0.004. Now, just on that, let me tell you that in 2017 or possibly 2018, streaming was slightly higher. You wouldn't be surprised to go back a bit further. At one point, streaming paid out roughly around about 0.7 to 0.9. So therefore, you're looking at a seventh of a cent to almost a cent per stream. But the problem is 100,000 track gets released every single day, supply and demand, more and more and more and more music. The labels have squeezed more and more, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And so what happens is over a period of time, your streaming revenue goes down. And let's face it, if this carries on next year, the year after, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tracks being released every single week. So therefore, you can see only one thing, which is less streaming revenue, per stream per artists. So at the moment, we know that 0.004 is the average that we're going to look at, which this money then goes to the rights holders. Okay, so whoever holds the rights of the songs. Now, with that in mind, if we do some more math, 2.5 billion streams, right, times by 0.004, that would equal to $10.12 million payout to rights holders per day. Okay, so it's just over $10 million in payouts per day. Now, if you multiply that by 12 months, so you multiply that by 365 days a year, that comes to around about $3.7 billion. Okay, so there you go. You say, okay, so if everyone gets paid their 0.004, then technically Spotify should pay out 3.7 billion. The problem is we know that they don't pay out 3.7. We know that they have said that they will pay 10 billion. So let's look at some more math. If we've got that 3.7 billion, the next thing is Spotify made in 2024 $17.2 billion. That was their income in 2024, according to several reports. Now, what did they do with that money? 70% apparently goes to rights holders, and they keep, apparently, including working capital, 30%, which I believe they've said, around about 5 billion. Now, I know everyone's going to say, hang on a minute, evil Spotify, and Spotify have some part to play in this, but it isn't quite as simple as that. Okay, now when it comes to the people who've created the music, if we're doing the 0.004, and we know that it's just over $3.5 billion worth of royalties, but Spotify has said that they pay $10 billion worth of royalties, then what happens to the other potentially $6.5 billion? Well, that is where the labels come in. So as we are hopefully all aware, the way Spotify works isn't as simple as everyone gets the same amount. And per stream, the money or income per stream differs depending on multiple different things. For example, someone in India will pay a different amount for their monthly subscription for Spotify as someone in Norway or the UK or the US. We also know that there is free membership to Spotify if you're prepared to have ads. So it's not quite as simple as just saying this is the money, it's divided up. But the big thing is the major label licensing agreements, which get renegotiated every couple of years. So I'm a big believer that Spotify, when it first came out, and other DSPs, but when Spotify came out, Spotify was the answer. Spotify was the best thing that ever happened to the music industry back in the day, which was a Wednesday, probably around about 2008. The problem here is we've come full circle, and now we're in a different time. The major labels were thrown very, very heavily because all of a sudden Napster was throwing music out for free. The labels were saying, hang on a minute, this isn't the way the music industry works, and everything was destroyed. Spotify came in, swooped in, saved the day, and everyone said, look, this is a happy medium. In doing so, artists had a lot of creative freedom because all of a sudden, all your distribution, people in different parts of the world could be able to hear your music, which had pretty much never been able to happen before because you'd have to promote mostly via gigs and stuff like that without labels doing all the distribution, the manufacturing. All of this stuff happened and you're like, this is incredible for artists. But every single time there's a renegotiation, the labels say, we've got all the leverage and you need our music more than we need you. And it's this partnership by default, but the labels keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And so what happens here is the labels don't just get the lion's share. So there's 3 major labels, but when it comes to the major labels, they do direct licensing agreements. Agreements. Okay. Now, when they negotiate that, they're all kind of negotiating individually. But what we are effectively doing is we are doing separate licensing agreements, which means not only do they get minimum guarantees. Now, this bit's really important, because this is the bit that people miss out on. It's not just minimum guarantees. They also get playlist control, a lot of playlist control. And on top of that, they get better royalties, okay? so they get better royalties. So in doing that, what happens there is, if you've got a DIY or an independent artist, they've got so much, the majors have got so much extra shit to be able to work with, because they've got minimum guarantees, they've got playlist control, they've already got the money, they've already got the expertise, but they've also got their hands in the cookie jar, because they're working with these massive DSPs to say, look, part of the deal is you do need to kind of prioritize us, and we do know that there's a lot of algorithmic playlists. So the problem here is 100,000 songs per day that are going into a system that rewards 1%. Like, just think about that for a second. 100,000 songs every single day into a system that is already rewarding just the top 1%, which is a huge, huge problem. Now, if we then look at what makes the problem even worse, is Spotify. If anyone has Spotify, I do. Maybe not forever. Spotify in the US, which is where I am, costs $12 per month. Now, $12 per month doesn't allow me to listen to music. $12 a month is an entrance fee, and that entrance fee means I get access to pretty much every song that's ever been created in the history of ever. Okay, think about that for a second. I'm not paying for music anymore. I'm paying Spotify for an entrance fee. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. I walk in and I pay my entrance fee, and I say, what can I have? And they say, whatever you want. And I say, how long? And you go, a whole month. You just keep going. You can eat as much as you want, as little as you want, whenever you want. You just keep going and going and going. And what I'm paying for is an entrance fee instead of paying for the artist. And then we leave it to Spotify and the labels and everyone else to negotiate what that does in this kind of trickle-down economics. So what we've got here is Spotify's $12 is basically access to music history. Everything from the Beatles right the way through to Sabrina Carpenter. You know, really old classics, really modern, big hits for that entrance fee. Now, Spotify is paid and music is free. And so therefore, that's the way we now think. Music is disposable because music is pretty much as free as it's ever going to get. And so what we're doing here is we are, as the independent aspect of the music industry, we are watching the door close because the labels are squeezing their grip. And it means, as we watch the door close on this kind of $12, which has gone up, I think, $2 since I've started using Spotify. I think when I first started, it was $10. Now it's $12. And since then, there's probably been gone from 50 million songs, I think, to around about 100 to 120 million songs, something crazy like that, including podcasts and everything else they've invested in. But as the door closes, because we're seeing the grip tighten from the labels and everyone else, what we're seeing here is less money per stream, therefore less money for artists, but we're also seeing less opportunities. All right? And as well as that, we're also seeing less rewards. And so what happens there is people like me, who also help artists with their career and build, feel like we do a great job by getting really good results, only for the rewards to be negligible. And I'm like sometimes I'm sat there and I'm like, these numbers are amazing. They're amazing. Like, for an independent artist to be able to get hundreds of thousands, if not millions of streams, and then I'm looking at a couple of $100 worth of reward, and I'm like, of all of the effort. So then I'm like, we have to double our efforts, in the words of the old Star Wars. We have to double our efforts. And in 2001, an artist would be expected to release music every 2 years, which would be a CD, which a CD usually is 12 songs. 2025, we're talking about artists releasing music every 2 or 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. And on top of that, you've got to be in charge of the writing, the arranging, the producing, the distribution, the manufacturing, the promotion, like the TikTok, everything else. It's an insane amount, and we've tripled, if not quadrupled, the efforts of things that need to happen. Meanwhile, we're watching the rewards basically just dissipate in front of our eyes, all because the model, which did work, I believe did work, is now getting squeezed, and it doesn't work anymore. And so, what does that mean? That means that there is the truth that nobody wants to say, okay? Nobody wants to say this, okay? Which is, Spotify was the best thing to happen to the music industry at a time where it was completely falling apart. But the problem here is the music industry has changed. The labels are back to being the gatekeepers. The labels have the grip around Spotify and other DSPs. The pros that came with Spotify, with the equality and the free distribution and everything else, the labels have now squeezed all of that out. And in 2025, Spotify is not for independent artists. Spotify has closed the door, is not independent artist friendly. Unfortunately, that is the truth. And I've been fighting this battle for a long time of like, you know, we've got to use the tools that we've been given, and there's so much opportunity. Meanwhile, I'm watching the door slightly close and going, all right, the door's a bit more closed, but we can still get through the door. And then the door closes a bit more, and I'm like, well, it's not ideal, but we got to keep going. And I'm changing my strategies compared to, you know, what's in front of me. And I'm just watching artists burn out, and I'm watching the stress, and I'm going, it's just getting less and less fair, and something has to be done. Like, we have to do something about this, and the time is now, and things need to change. So what is the solution? Here is what I believe is the solution, and how we have to make a stand and fix the music industry, and how we fix this. Number one, okay, we need, excuse my childlike writing, we need to recognize that this is a monopoly, right? We also need to recognize that the system is broken. That is first. If we do not recognize this, that the system is broken, we will never make this change. If we do not understand that the problem is not just the massive conglomerates like Spotify, like Universal Music or Warner or Sony or anyone else, this is also the fact that over the last 15 to 20 years, we have told people minute by minute, time after time, that the thing that they value of music is free. You have to pay an entrance fee, which isn't, so you're paying the company, but music is free, which has belittled and devalued the quality of music. We have then made sure that in order to try and get your music out there, we have gone to a quantity over quality. And now if you're looking at music, you're thinking to yourself, is music as good as it used to? It's like churn it out, churn it out. We haven't got time to think about this stuff. How do you get the next Jeff Buckley? Like, how do you get the next Pink Floyd? How do you experiment when the algorithms and the systems are set up to penalize niche genres, to penalize niche artists? What it wants is just numbers, 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 because that's where the money's at. So we have to recognize that this is a monopoly and the system is completely broken. Number two, we have to switch to a pay per stream model. Okay? At the moment, it's a pay for entrance. We need a pay per stream. If we have a pay per stream, which is you listen to the song and you will get charged for that song, which we'll come on to how in a minute. But you get charged for that song. Music becomes more purposeful. People aren't just throwing stuff out there and listening to it for 10 hours. They're going, hang on, I'm going to listen to music because it's what I want to do, and I'm going to choose the music that I want to listen to, and I'm not just throwing something up for the sake of it. It makes music more purposeful, and it means people will start to put value into music again, which then starts the circle back into quality over quantity. Now, how do we do that? Number three, and most importantly, is we must have a minimum wage for artists. And that minimum wage needs to start now, as quick as possible, at one stream equals 1 cent. Okay? Every time someone streams your song, they should get charged 1 cent. Now, if we did this pay per stream model with one stream, 1 cent, your $10 or $12, depending on where you are in the world, your $12 Spotify would allow you to still listen to almost 2 hours of music within that $12 per day for an entire month. But if you go over that, you should be paying your 1 cent. And the 1 cent should be going to the artists that you are listening to, not to the labels with trickle-down economics, which then some of that goes to the major label artists. What we are doing here is we are incentivizing a system which is already broken. It should be, you listen, you pay. You can't afford to pay, you can't listen. Music is a privilege. It is not a right. And we all have this soundtrack to our life. And if I want to listen to your work, I should have to pay you something for it. I shouldn't have to pay Spotify and Spotify will give you something. That worked 10 years ago. Right now, that model is very problematic. All we are asking for, right, is a fair playing field. Now, what I mean by that is right now, your $12 that goes to Spotify mostly goes to labels, shareholders, and the 1%. It doesn't go to the artists that you listen to. And it doesn't go to the artists I'm listening to. I'm pretty sure most of it doesn't go to you. So therefore, instead of saying, look, the labels have the monopoly, the labels have the leverage, the labels have the power, the labels have the playlist push, we say, no, it's a fair game. But what the labels have got is all the experience. And what the labels have got is all of the money. So therefore, they should be able to market. They should be able to do the stuff they've always had to do. But from a fair playing field point of view, someone streams your song, that person should be paying 1 cent. And the DSPs, like Spotify and other DSPs, should then say, this is not a monopoly towards 3 major labels. This is about how we incentivize people to understand that music is not disposable. Music is purposeful. Music is important. And the most important message over everything else in this entire video, which is music is not free. That's the message. Music isn't free. It never has been free. It should never be free. And the entire society thinking it is and paying for Spotify is completely wrong. We must change this to a pay per stream model. And more importantly, we must have a minimum wage for artists, which is 1 stream, 1 cent. I'd like to know your thoughts, because this has just been getting tougher and tougher and tougher, and I'm watching artists with more mental health problems pushed on them because of the expectations that they are putting themselves under in order to try and do something that people genuinely like and value. I'm not saying that the system's rigged against you and you can't do it. I'm saying you can do it, but when you do it, you should get paid for it. You should get rewarded for it. You know, when it comes to this pay per stream model, we do it with water, we do it with electricity. How much electricity did you use? This much, pay for it. How much water did you use? This much, pay for it. How much music did you use? Well, I put it on at 8 in the morning and I kept it on until 12 at night. I did that for 30 days. How much do you pay? $12. It's the same thing. It's bullshit. And $12, to put that into perspective, is pretty much the same price in America as a Big Mac meal at McDonald's, which is what? It's a low budget meal that'll last you 10 minutes. And for the same price, people can get every song that's ever been created for an entire month. It's ridiculous. We have to make a stand. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I'm missing. But from here on in, we have to go on the offensive. We have to take this fight. And we have to make sure that musicians are looked after from a financial perspective, from opportunities perspective. And we have to make music great again. I didn't just say that. But we do have to make music less disposable. We have to look after artists. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be making a bunch of videos on this over the next couple of days and weeks. I'd love your support on it. It's something I feel very passionate about, and I'm sure you guys do too. So let's make change.